Hi everyone. Welcome to the first Minds Over Chatter interview. So I'm Alfred from Minds Over Chatter, and you are.
And I'm Dr. Ann Mock. Thank you for inviting me to be in your first interview.
So I knew that you're someone that works with mental health. So can you give us your definition for mental health?
My definition of mental health, I like actually the WHO, the World Health Organization's definition best. It is not, it actually says that it is not just the absence of a mental health disorder, but it's actually about a person who is in a state of having the ability to deal with general daily stress in life, and also have the capacity to learn, to work, not only for themselves but to others, and basically to enjoy life. And I like that as a good mental health state definition.
So that means you think that mental health is important to every people, right? Everyone.
Yes, it is definitely not just physical or just psychological or otherwise. It is actually the whole being, and it's for everyone. I think individually as well as in a community as a group.
So in terms of like us normal people, what do you think may be some misconceptions that we have about the term mental health?
Well, let me share with you a little bit about my own experience in terms of my misconception of mental health. I remember when I was actually in the first year of university already, so further than high school. So somehow, this was years ago, of course, I had the understanding of, mental health meant mental, as in something to do with my mental cognition going wrong. So when people say you have a mental health problem, I right away would think of mental health disorder. And it was in first year of university that I was going along, and there was a lot of stress, of course, being in university the first year. I remember actually, I think the first semester went well, for the second semester came along. I thought I was doing well, and then one night I could not sleep at all. And when I realized I couldn't sleep, I got so nervous and anxious that I felt I'm going to not be able to sleep forever. And then I began to see, especially looking online and on, all kinds of articles, I became to think that I was maybe having an anxiety disorder or some sort of mental health problem. And my worry was, what if I become anxious all the time?
Uh-huh.
And that's a terrible feeling, and I must be going crazy. I think the scariest feeling and sense is that I'm losing it. I'm losing control, I'm going crazy. And that was really anxiety provoking for me, and I got really anxious. So that was my first kind of taste of a negative side of having poor mental health.
Oh, so something as simple as like anxiety or constant anxiety and stuff can be, classified as like some problems in mental health and stuff?
So that's a good question, and I bet people listening might be thinking, wow, so she had anxiety, must have been anxiety disorder, maybe she did have a mental health breakdown. So finally, when I went to my general physician, my GP, who was a fantastic listener and a very good, I think, well expertise in the area of psychological well-being. And he looked at me, he said, well, it sounds like this is a good time for you to feel anxious because you've gone through, you got a lot of transitions. So the conclusion he gave me was, no, Anne, you're not having a mental breakdown. And no, this is not what mental health disorder is about. Are you anxious? Yes. But do you have an anxiety disorder? No. So that gave me a lot of relief, realizing that that's what I was stressing about. That was one of the chatters in my brain saying to me, you're going nuts. And then I realized, no, I have an expert telling me I'm not. I'm fine. This is part of the transition and change. And so I'm just going to go on. And he gave me some ideas on what to do, having better sleep, working out a bit, etc. There were different things that we could do, and I did follow his instruction. And I was able to get away from the, anxious state that I was in. I was able to gain my sleep back, not immediately that same night, but slowly I was able to get out of it. And no, I didn't have a mental health disorder, and I don't. So I'm really thankful for that.
So like something like normal people, we have anxiety. Oh, we have a test, we have an exam, and then we get stressed out, and
Yeah.
that's perfectly normal.
Totally. And I think that's something that we need to be careful about, to not label ourselves. And this is why I like the WHO definition of mental health. It is a very normal thing, and having good mental health means you are able to basically handle the normal stresses of life. There are stresses that are way above our heads, and that's okay too, because that's part of life. And it means we need to maybe get a bit more help, get to talk to people, etc., and we will get through it. It's when we don't deal with it that it kind of circles down. Yeah.
Oh, so when you talk about don't label yourself with a mental health, like, I don't know, disorder and stuff, what do you mean by that?
Well, it's like what I was doing. I'm of course only one case, but I'm just saying. I think I was a pretty typical teenager, not having a lot of information, but having some information that scared me. So I was beginning to say, I have a mental health disorder. I might have to look at the DVS. Then it was indeed DSM-5, but maybe DSM-4 or 3, to look at the diagnosis and say, oh, I've got these symptoms. When we self-label without expertise diagnosis, it's very dangerous, because then we will tend to think we've got this, we've got that, and we also then tend to live up to those behavior or symptoms. And then that's when we kind of spiral down. So I think it is really important not to just put a label on yourself, but rather to know that, well, wait, what is this? I have to acknowledge my symptoms or my concerns, and rather than sit there and just be anxious about it, or say that, yeah, definitely I have an anxiety disorder, I am in depression. Why? Because I did the scale online, a scale of, there were 10 questions, and then I self-label. That's very dangerous, because it makes you get even more scared, and it doesn't help you.
So it's not like something like I don't know, like MBTI or some other personality tests.
Yeah, well, personality tests don't test for depression so much. There are some so-called tests for depression, and I do not advise for them. I definitely would advise that instead you find out a bit more from maybe experts, whether it's your general physician or maybe even a psychologist or a counselor, to get some ideas and help that are evidence-based and not just based on your own inkling or somebody's writing online, which is even more dangerous, I think. I think the other thing is, when you mention certain personality tests, it's not to say you shouldn't take them, but we love doing those because, again, we want to label ourselves saying, oh, this is why I behave this way, because I'm an emotional person, or, my scale on emotional capacity is like this low or this high. All of that doesn't really help you. It makes you self-label. So yeah, there are certain personality tests that I use, that I've used with my counselees and my students, and they are helpful for them to get some knowledge of who they are and what are their strengths and weaknesses, but not only weaknesses, strengths as well, and so they can build upon it. Weaknesses, yeah, they can make improvements on them. But there are a few personality tests that are well evidenced, that are that have good applications. So those I certainly would recommend. But I definitely would advise against just taking any kind of so-called test online, and then you label yourself. So.
Because sometimes after you take the test and then it says that you're a person, as you said, very emotional, and then you tend to go towards that part, and
Exactly.
you don't that's not the point of the test. It's to make you like a better person and stuff.
Well, in psychodynamic from Freud, infamous, our father of psychodynamic, he would say that is a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like you do a prophecy on yourself and you fulfill it, but it all came from just your own labeling. And that's not very helpful usually. Yeah.
So do you think is this a stigma which surrounds around the mental health industry and stuff?
I think in our community, I mentioned when I was a teenager, which was a long time ago, but at that time, why was I so anxious about my losing some sleep? It was because I was scared about having a mental health condition. And so you can see it was very stigmatized already then. Now, I don't want to say if it's more so or less, but it's definitely there as well, whether it's in our tradition, whether it's an Asian tradition or non-Asian. I've worked with both parents and adults, and there's often that fear that, oh my goodness, are you telling me that my child is mental? How dare you, right? Yeah, and yet they don't even know what that really means. So it's really important to, I think, to understand what it means. And as I refer to the definition previously, it's a very normal piece of state in terms of our own well-being.
So, like at the last, we have a few more seconds. So, if you want to give one message to students, the public, and parents, or even educators, what would it be?
I think one thing is, first of all, you have to acknowledge and know where you are, and not just say, there's nothing wrong, 没事没事, okay, or I'm just fine, right? You know how people ask you, how are you doing? Fine, thank you. That's like our canned response. It's okay to say that, of course, but it's important to note that for yourself, to be aware. So talk about self-awareness. And then the other thing is, I think, when you are aware that, oh, something's wrong, like when I was finally realizing I am spiraling down, one thing I realized is that, okay, I really need some expertise opinion. I need to get some help. And it's okay to get help. I think often when I see students and parents for many years now, because I've worked as a counselor and counseling psychologist for years, in high school as well as university, I find that often the people that are in trouble and get into truly clinical depression, diagnosed ones, are people that have left their small issues initially alone and just say, I'm fine, nothing wrong, and then never try to do anything about it, don't get help, don't talk to anyone about it, never mind getting expertise opinion, but not even letting their supporters, whether it's their parents, their friends, their spouse, know. And I'm not at all saying you go and tell the world. You don't need to. Tell someone that you trust. Talk to them. Get a second, third opinion other than the chatter you hear in yourself. So it's really important to get help. Because we all do. We all need to get help. We're not an island. And that's the beauty of it. We can get people's opinions and ideas, and we can get better. Okay?
So thank you for letting us interview you.
You're very welcome. It's great.
Yes.
And this is a very meaningful project, so I hope you make lots of impact on a lot of people.
Thank you.
Okay.
We had a great time.